Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and I'm alongside Josh Guest, and we are talking some Ole Miss and Georgia this weekend. And just so you know, Josh, I've been doing interviews all day with Georgia people. So Georgia at this point basically are a rolling ball of butcher knives, and they are unbeatable.
Of course. I mean, that's how it is. But I mean, I think they haven't lost in my lifetime. So, pretty much that's what we expected.
The funny thing is, I overheard a Georgia and a Florida fan arguing, and Florida was talking about how they had won national championships, and I guess they had been better for a longer period of time. And a Georgia fan just shut it down by saying, yeah, that's great. We're better right now than you have ever been.
Oh, nice.
And that just, nice. And it's like, whoa.
Mic drop.
Yeah, it was all she wrote. And I was talking with Clint Shamblin from Locked On Bulldogs, and I was talking to Corey Burton from Believe in Georgia Dogs. And I think this game is going to hinge on third down play. I think third down play is going to be the main issue for Ole Miss. But this is a huge, massive game as far as opportunity. It doesn't necessarily do anything negative to Ole Miss to lose this game. Ole Miss loses this game, they're still going to the Peach, the Orange, or the Cotton Bowl. But the opportunity, if Ole Miss can pull this game off and win it, is just astronomical.
I agree completely on all points there. And, as you keep beating that drum about 4 Access Bowls in 10 years and how those back-to-back Alabama wins were huge. The first one on the road, the second one, Oxford on the road, I think it was. St. Quest Golson's interception, and then the next year with the Attaboy Joe touchdown off the tip that went up in the air. So just total craziness there. And so what was it? Number one hardest schedule in the country was what we saw coming into the season, strength of schedule wise, and we're 8-1 in November. I'll take it. I mean, I'd like to be 9-0, but I'll take it.
I mean, game day's in town today, and game day does not go to a football game in November unless that game matters. You don't get freebies in November. It's only real games that matter in November. And game day and Lee Corso and the whole 9 yards are going to be in Athens, Georgia for little old Ole Miss against the Georgia Bulldogs.
Well, and the other thing, Stephen, that is so nice is I was watching ESPN late Saturday night, or maybe it was Sunday when the NFL was on. I was watching, SEC Network or whatever, or maybe it was just ESPN SportsCenter, and they showed a projection on percentage to win the title, to win the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And you know who was on the screen? Ole Miss. Yeah, we were the lowest percentage on there at 6%. We were the 10th team on there. I think they probably did the top 10 in the playoff standings. But we're on the screen. We're in the discussion, and that is something that is so exciting if you're an Ole Miss fan. If you're not excited about that, I can't help you. But you got to be excited because we're in that conversation. People are talking about Ole Miss playoff. Whether we make it or not, we're in the discussion, and this is an amazing time to be an Ole Miss fan.
Yeah, and if you go back to, 2003. The LSU game in 2003. And that was such a seminal moment because that was the return just to being on the scene for Ole Miss football. But that Ole Miss team had lost 2 games. They lost to Memphis and they lost to Texas Tech. And there was a feeling that after Eli left, Ole Miss was going to take a step back and go back to that 6-6, 7-5 range in that area that they had lived. So that may have been a first time coming onto the scene, but it wasn't Ole Miss announcing their presence. In 2014, like we talked about with Alabama, that changed everything. And over the next 10 years, because this year will be the 10th year, so I'm counting this one, and I don't think Ole Miss is going to lose to ULM or Mississippi State. And if they lose to Georgia, it doesn't matter. Ole Miss is going to have 4 Access Bowls in 10 years. And that's blue blood stats is what that is. It's not Ohio State. It's not Georgia. It's not Alabama, but it's better than Auburn. It's better than Oregon. It's better than that tier of school. So it's important that with a win over Georgia, and Ole Miss can beat Georgia, and I do talk all the time is there's a difference between can, should, and will. And Ole Miss can beat Georgia. But if Ole Miss can pull that off, you are sitting at a situation where Ole Miss is just now, they're in that Oregon time frame where if you see Ole Miss ranked 6th year in and year out, you're not surprised. That seems about right. And that is such an unbelievable thought for somebody that grew up with me at the point when just seeing a number by Ole Miss's name was unbelievably exciting. Now Ole Miss has been in the top 10 in the college football poll 3 times since 2014. This is going to be their 4th Access Bowl, and they're just waiting to take this next step. And the thing that everybody needs to know about these games are naturally going to be hard. They just are, because if they're easy, they would not be the games that we want them to be. But if you keep knocking on the door at that opportunity to move up the next level, keep doing it over and over again, eventually that bad boy is going to open just like it did for Clemson, because Clemsoning was a thing for 20 years because Clemson kept knocking on the door and it's getting shut in their face. Eventually, Clemson got through there and they were able to do something pretty special. Ole Miss is on a precipice of that as well.
Yeah, and I know you've mentioned it as others have mentioned it as well, and it's something I talk about. I Stephen said last week that Missouri believed that it might not be enough. And, that game went in the 4th quarter and was close, and if it weren't for 2 Missouri interceptions, who knows what would have happened. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of looking at that going, you know what, I'm not knocking Missouri, but I think Ole Miss is every bit as good as Missouri. So if we can go to the 4th quarter with a 3-point game, if we can take care of the football, I like our chances. I'll roll the dice.
I don't care if it's Georgia's defense or not, but if you give Jaxson Dart the ball with 4 minutes to go in the game down by 4 points, I'm just assuming we're going to score a touchdown. I don't care who the defense is out there.
Yeah. Can I go ahead and talk about Jaxson?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not Lane Kiffin. I'm not some fancy coach, but I've coached a little bit of, kids baseball, travel ball and stuff, not low pressure stuff. But what you have is you have some kids that are not the biggest, they're not the fastest, they're not the strongest, but when the game is on the line, you want the ball in their hands because they're clutch. And so I'm thinking of 2 kids I've coached that were that way. They were both on the smaller end of things. In fact, one of them, we were going to a championship game and he was warming up on the mound and the other team was visibly pointing and laughing at them. The last play of the game, we beat them 2-1, was a ground ball up the middle. He caught it as he fell backwards and threw the guy out from his butt to first base, and we won the game. And he was one of those 2 kids that when the game was on the line, I wanted him on the mound because I knew he was going to get it done because he was just clutch. He didn't have the strongest fastball. He didn't have the strongest arm. He wasn't the biggest kid. He couldn't hit it the furthest, but he was clutch. And Jaxson Dart is that. So people want to say, well, he's not very accurate. Well, he's accurate enough, and he's thrown some of the most accurate passes I've ever seen. Yeah, he underthrew Trey Harris a couple times this past weekend. I think he couldn't believe how much time he had and how much room there was. I think it kind of startled him maybe. But again, what happened when we got the ball late? He drove down the field. What is that, 3 this year already in the 4th quarter, final drives?
4th you count too late.
Yeah. And if you – give me the kid. If you told me right now, you said 4 minutes, I'd take a minute and a half down by 5 and us get the ball at Georgia. I'd take it because I believe we're going to score. And I believe we're going to score because he's going to drive us down the field and we're going to score, period, because Jaxson Dart is just clutch.
And, here's the situation on those passes to Trey Harris. And I've heard that a couple of times and people point at that. He is not overthrowing the ball on purpose. He just wants the ball to be catchable because he thinks Trey Harris is going to make the catch.
And Trey Harris proved him right. He won. Yeah. He won. Yeah. There was a battle, and Trey Harris won. Not only did he win, he won every time. And then how stupid was that one-handed grab as he was going out of bounds? And then to keep his leg to drag as he's going out of bounds while he's catching it with one hand, like he's off the edge of the plank on a pirate ship. I mean, that was just amazing. Just absolutely amazing.
The incomplete pass in the back of the end zone where he just went up and stabbed it was unbelievable too.
That's right. Yeah. And he was clearly out of bounds there. But again, like you said, I'll just take that.
Yeah, you should be able to do it. You know what it reminded me of? I think it was the replacements Or the little giants to where you just bathe the hands and stick them and the ball just, that's what that reminded, because the ball hit the glove. It was caught. It was done. It didn't move at all. And the fact that he just caught it and brought it down like that was unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, he's unreal. And I wish we could have seen him healthy all season, especially in the Bama game. If
he's healthy against Bama, Ole Miss dog walks Bama. I'll say that right now. Everybody bookmark this, clip it all you want. If Trey Harris is healthy, Ole Miss beats Bama.
Well, look, I just sit here and I'm thinking about Georgia's D, and I think about A&M's D and how A&M's D is really, really, really good statistically. And we threw up 38, and we should have thrown up 65. So you were talking about blue bloods and Ole Miss and all these other things. My question is this, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it up, is refereeing. At what point is Ole Miss going to start or stop getting called for things that are minimal, in the words of Jordan Rodgers? When Jordan Rodgers says Ole Miss committed a minimal holding foul, it was minimal, because we don't get the announcers a lot of times, even on our side, with some things, or in years past anyway. I think it's starting to change with them. But the refereeing is one-sided. I don't even know football very well, and I could go cut up film and I could show you a play for every play that Ole Miss gets called for holding, another one the other team does in that game that's not called. There was an Auburn play where there were 2 holds. I know I mentioned it, 2 holds in one play, and nothing was called. And it was the late touchdown.
I think the answer is win tonight. If Ole Miss wins tonight, all of a sudden those calls are going to evaporate just magically. Because
I hope so. And I believe we're going to have to beat Georgia and the referees. It does worry me a little bit, because the old adage, you can call holding on every play. Well, sometimes against Ole Miss, every big play there's a holding call. And it's so sad, because I can't even enjoy a touchdown when I'm watching Ole Miss play football, because I'm looking around for laundry on the field.
This is a realistic thing. And like I said, Georgia could win tonight. Nobody's going to be surprised if a bunch of 4- and 5-star players play like a bunch of 4- and 5-star players.
That's right.
Nobody's going to be surprised about that. That's the reason I said there's no negative thing that could happen to Ole Miss other than to be eliminated from the playoffs. But if Ole Miss wins tonight and they beat Georgia, and Georgia goes into the SEC championship game and beats Alabama, and other chaos happens, Ohio State and Michigan have to play, all of that stuff has to happen. But you're in a situation where the SEC championship champions only loss in the last 3 years is to this Ole Miss team. And I think that's going to carry a bunch of weight if it comes to the fruition. Now, like I said, there's 3 outcomes in this game that would not surprise me. One is if Georgia just bows up and absolutely beats Ole Miss 42-14. Something like that. That would not surprise me.
It would make me sad. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. It would not surprise me if it's a close win for the Georgia Bulldogs, and it would not surprise me if it's a close win for the Ole Miss Rebels. The only thing that would surprise me, it would be a boat race by Ole Miss. But if Ole Miss can win this game, and then Georgia takes care of Alabama, knocks them out of the playoff, because that's what if Alabama has to win the rest of their games to do it, Ole Miss is at least going to go up 1, that. I think Texas is going to lose again. I'm not sure where, but it might be in the Big 12 championship and they get knocked out. Washington or Oregon is going to take an L and go down. That's 3 spots. So if Ole Miss is 9, that gets them up to 6 right now. So there's 2 places needs to go. If Michigan and Ohio State goes weird, maybe playoff, just like, no, we don't need both of them. One of them is sitting at home. And all of a sudden, Ole Miss is right on the edge of where they need to be. And this is absolutely beyond me. Now, granted, if Ole Miss didn't have one bad half of football with an injury-riddled football team without a healthy Trey Harris and healthy Caden Prescorn, and the wide receivers are a little bit injured as well. Quinshon Judkins was injured a little bit as well. Ole Miss probably wins that game, and we don't even have this discussion. And this game that Ole Miss is about to play against Georgia, you're talking about number 2 versus number 3.
Yep.
But right. You have a situation that this is just an unbelievably massive game for Ole Miss in the good sense of the word. It's an opportunity. Bad-wise, there's nothing that can really happen. If Ole Miss loses this game, they're going to drop down to number 11, which you can easily win after everybody loses games, and to move back up into the top 10. So I think this is just a great opportunity. I think the miracle adage is the right adage. We are playing the Soviets, and they do not lose hockey games. And we have a bunch of college kids, a bunch of working class guys that really have the right mentality to go along with their athleticism. This is a talented team. We wouldn't be in this position otherwise. But, just for the sake of narrative, this is the blue collar team. This is the team that does things the right way. And they need to go take apart the Soviet Union in hockey, Georgia in football. If you play 100 times, Georgia might win 99, but not tonight. Not this game. Tonight, you're the best football team in the history of football.
Well, and I don't know if you got to hear any of the radio after game stuff online or anything, but they interviewed Trey Harris, obviously as a player of the game, on the local radio. And he talked about Dart. And he talked about what Dart meant to the football team and how Dart was mentally tough and physically tough and how Dart got back up every time and how Dart led them down the field and how every one of those guys, he didn't say it in these words, but basically wanted to run through a wall for Dart because he would do it for you. And so just to hear that coming from your star wide receiver was amazing for me because sometimes you wonder, but it came out of his mouth right there. And this may have been on TV for all I know. I remember Trey Harris was talking about it somewhere I was listening to. And so just to hear that and see that and know that those guys believe, and I may have been a little disrespectful to Missouri last week when I said that about believing, but I didn't think they had enough in it. I believe Ole Miss has enough. I believe the Ole Miss offense can score. I know Georgia's offense is a little special this year compared to Georgia, and maybe their defense, and it's splitting hairs. Maybe they're not quite what they have been.
Yeah, I think this is still an offensive Georgia team. This is an offensive team for Georgia.
Yes, but I do think Ole Miss has the dudes to keep up and score with them. Now,
and Georgia admits that.
Yes, we just have to. What's the word I'm looking for? Not make mistakes at all.
Play clean.
I mean, even special teams, we can't have a 10-yard punt. We can't. You will probably hear me in Florida screaming at my TV if we're going for 4th and 2 near midfield.
Yes.
No, just punt it, make them drive the field.
Make Georgia provide their own energy. Do not give that place a jolt without the benefit is not worth if Georgia gets the stop. 4th and 1 against Georgia is a trap.
Yeah. Well, and just like Lane has a special called something up his sleeve, guess what? I bet Kirby Smart does too on defense. He's going to show you something on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. He's going to show you something, and when the ball is snapped, it won't be what you thought it was, and it will be meant to stop whatever your little trick play was, because he just. I mean, again, he's proven it too many times as defensive coordinator, and now his teams now are just so. Do they? I mean, and I haven't watched every down of Georgia football, but do they even make mistakes on defense? I mean,
Well, they do. They actually Texas A&M's front seven's probably better. The secondary for Texas A&M is a whole bunch better than Texas A&M. That's the difference there. I think this Georgia defense the defensive line was the kind of the heart and soul of that defense for so long. It became the secondary. The secondary is really good. Kwame Lassiter, I think his name, is going to end up probably covering Trey Harris, and he's that lockdown guy. He's that guy that's going to be making millions of dollars soon. So Trey, they're going to try and take away Trey. It's going to be man coverage. And if you look at they're going to try and take away Quinshawn just because that's the way they work. So it's going to come down to Caden Prescorn, Jordan Watkins, Jaxson Dart running the football. Those positions are going to be very important against the Georgia Bulldogs. Dayton Wade. Maybe this is the game that Zachary Franklin just shows up and they're like, where'd this guy come from?
Isn't he from Georgia?
No, he's from Texas.
He's from Texas. Did he play somewhere in Georgia or no? Where did he come from?
No, he's UTSA.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm all wrong on that.
Yeah, and the Georgia Tech guys that play defense, like Kella Stone, Jared Ivey, Zamari Walton.
Okay, yep.
This is going to mean something for those guys because they came from a program for just covering the spread against the mighty Georgia Bulldogs and their huge rivalry games. Think about how Ole Miss react if Mississippi State was Georgia and we were where Mississippi State was.
Yes.
So this is going to mean something for Jared Ivey and Samari Walton and Akello Stone, because they got some muscle memory built up about this game.
Well, what I'm hoping is Ivy's okay, because he left last week's game.
Is.
Right?
He is.
So, I'm hoping he's 100%.
If anybody knows and follows the show, knows where I'm getting my information on this, Jared Ivey is going to be fine. He just kind of aggravated his shoulder that was already a little bit dinged up.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Yeah, he's gonna be amped up for sure, and so it'll be nice to see these guys hopefully show out against the Georgia Bulldogs.
Wild horses could not keep Jared Ivey off the field in this game. So, all right. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tonight, the Ole Miss Rebels take on the Georgia Bulldogs. Josh Guest, what is your prediction of the game?
Well, Georgia 60, Ole Miss 10, because I'm always wrong. So if I pick something I don't want to happen, maybe something else will happen. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not picking 60-10 Georgia. We scored 38 against A&M, and I thought, I told you 14 or 21, and then they scored 35. Max Johnson, I think, got pretty beat up in that game. I even heard some rib issues that possibly he has. And so, but he was able to get rid of the ball.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers to State. He's apparently playing this weekend.
Okay. Yeah. I just, I don't know, but they were able to score more, but we put 38 up against A&M. So that's why I'm about to give you the number I'm going to give you here. Georgia's going to score. Georgia's offensive line is supposedly good, but they haven't been tested. So we'll see. But one thing is for sure, they won't be called for holding, and we will. We know this already. So
yes.
I'm going to say this, and if the officiating could mess this up as well. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be close late. I'm more hoping and praying that this is the situation that we get the ball back, something in the realm of 38-35. Georgia's leading with a couple minutes left, and we drive down the field and we win 42-38. Rebels take the victory 42-38 over the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens, and the world freezes.
Hey, and I'm going with 34-31, and I think that was the same score that Ole Miss won whenever the last time they won in Athens. So
okay,
just nice.
A little nostalgia there with it.
Yeah. Whenever like Walker Jones helped run down him and Brock Kreitz ran down Hines Ward on a big play. That happened in that game as well. Anyway, thank you very much, Josh, for stopping by the show. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right. Howdy, toddy, go Rebs.
Howdy, toddy.